Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to be looking at some requests from the comments. Today we have a request coming in from the Fenny1234. It says Perfume Genius, Jason. So, let's dive into this. We've had Perfume Genius on the channel before, I think only once though. And I enjoyed their electronic work in the way that they crafted theme with the lyrics, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. Anyways, let's dive into this one and see what's going on with Jason. Man, getting right into it. Not only just having the chord progression from beat 1, but vocals as well. Oh. Really interesting to leave the drums out for so long after introducing them. Oh, beautiful harmony. It's a very gentle track. There's lots of nuance in it. Feels very hymnic here. I don't know if it's just I think it's a little bit of the instrument choice, but I think chord-wise too. Yeah, I love all the little nuanced ideas. Little ornamental concepts floating around. It's a gorgeous track. Very heavy-handed out of nowhere.
Discover new music at listener-powered KEXP.org.
It's over? Hey, what are you doing there? And that's gonna bring you up. Okay. Well, I guess that's sticking in there. We'll revisit that later when we hit the outro spiel. Yeah, it ended a lot sooner than I thought it was going to. I guess it is only 3 minutes though, but it didn't feel like 3 minutes. It's a very gentle track. Everything in it up until the last 30 seconds is fairly light-handed, nuanced. I mean, when we looked at the guitarist playing the eighth notes, alternate picking on the single string, the single note, right before that, the heavier ending. It's not a heavy ending, for sure, comparatively, as does most of the stuff we listen to on the channel, but it's heavy compared to what came before it. It's just the smallest, just the smallest movement on the guitarist. Any of the volume that came out of it, and it was of course a quieter sound, but any of the volume that came out of it was entirely driven through the electronics, the amp and volume pedals and stuff like that. The actual performance, how the instrument was played, was exceptionally light. And I think that that moment really exemplifies a lot of what's going on here. The vocals are light and airy, pure head voice or falsetto, just really being as quiet as possible, hitting those higher notes with that airy wispiness. The drums are very just very light. Um, it really, again, isn't until the end where the drummer begins to use any sort of force on the snare, and it's still not a lot. It's just more compared to what we heard previously. If you even watched the keyboardist playing, you know, they could have had a velocity-based keyboard, but still, it's just these little light taps with a heavy bounce coming off of them to ensure that, any sort of pressure being applied is then transitioned into the movement away from the key rather than into the keyboard itself. Again, if they have velocity-based instruments, virtual instruments, or velocity-based hardware, they don't want to lean into that too much. Everything is just done with such a soft, delicate touch. And that's even played around with the nuance as well. There isn't any heavy-handed writing in here. Everything feels ornamental and atmospheric. It's little dancing sounds over here and something glistening over there. His vocals sit in the middle and just kind of exist. They don't try to take over. They don't try to dominate. They just are. And it creates an atmosphere to the track, a general feeling that I think is really gorgeous. Um, in a way that feels unassuming. What would be the opposite of intimidating? I don't want to say meek, um, but yeah, it's just a gorgeous track that sits within. Oh, here's another cool thing too. It sits within one sound. I don't know that I heard repetition of sequences. I don't know if I could say this follows like a verse chorus pattern or anything like that. It feels fairly linear, but it also feels static. We have this general vibe, atmosphere, and even roles for all the instruments. Everything sits within what it does, and never really changes. But it still feels like we gradually change, and I think a lot of this comes from the nuanced ornamental ideas I was talking about. The melody coming from the vocals feels very repetitive. I don't think that changed at all. The drumming mostly increased in rhythmic nuance, but for the most part, its role of sort of just lightly staying in the background as a metronome was consistent throughout. uh, you know, it's a track that feels like it sort of just exists, like time is suspended for this moment, and we're going to fully explore this single atmosphere. The only time any of this changed, and what I was alluding to earlier, is our final 30 seconds. The vocal rhythm completely shifts to these heavy handed quarter notes. And I know it's weird. All those words had dual syllables to them. That was not my intention. But we just get single, syllable. That's dumb. I'm not going to do it that way. But you get the idea, right? There's still wispy, airy, head voice kind of stuff, but we just get these punctuated moments in it. And it feels very heavy. The I don't necessarily say it was the volume, because watching the volume meter, I don't think anything changed in this section, but the keyboard and guitar feel fuller, larger, more present. I don't know. I'd have to give it a second listen and really hone in here to figure out what's going on, but it feels not imposing, but it feels like it has gravity. That, I had mentioned that there was a dancing and a twinkling of ideas over here, and I don't really think I meant it at the time, but can certainly look at a levity to the ideas. The ornamental concepts aren't down here on the ground, they're up here and they're twinkling and sparkling, right? It has a lightness to it. It's up in the sky, stars, that kind of thing, right? That's what I was thinking of when I heard a lot of this. And at this point, there's gravity, there is weight, there is pull. It feels more grounded in a sense. I don't know. It's a really interesting change because, I thought this was weird too. The lead vocalist at this point did a salute. I don't know if he was just like, if it was bright and he was like shielding his eyes. But here's the thing though, at that moment, we got like a bar and a half of marching snare rolls, not full on because it wouldn't fit 100% with what was going on. But the snare originally in like the opening, the first 2.5 minutes of the track, 80% of it is accents. I don't remember if it was the front beat or the back beat, but it was an accent hit. And here we're getting multiple of them per beat. It was this feeling of March, and it left as quickly as it came. Like I said, it was only like a beat and a half of this, but it kind of came out of nowhere, and it just perfectly matched up with his hand being up here. And I don't know. The ending really throws me off. I don't. I mean, it could really mean a lot of things. Taking the concept of weightlessness and return to gravity is kind of what I feel through it, and that can represent so much. But mixing that with uh, the marching snare idea that doesn't fully go away, but we don't get that full on rhythmic idea in the last 10 seconds, 15 seconds of the track. Um, I don't know. It's an interesting song, primarily because there's so much emotion and so little. And that's just to say that the song doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't become anything. It's not a slow burn that builds up to stuff. Everything's present at the beginning, and when we get to the end, aside from the weight shift, nothing's really changed either. Each of the instruments is still kind of in the same range with the same roll and the same texture. And so it achieves this full emotional experience that I just talked about with very little change at all. In fact, very little going on at all. It is, well, I don't think this would be the traditional use for the term, but it's very maximalist. It achieves so much from so little, and I'm honestly quite inspired by it. I think it's easy to make awesome, larger than life masterpieces with a very large palette. But I think it takes a lot of skill to work within a smaller palette and still achieve those same heights. And I think that's exactly what happened here. I'm going to check out some lyrics, see what's going on there, and then we're going to wrap this up. Alright, so the song is about a sexual encounter between our narrator and another man. Our narrator is gay, and the other man is straight, although if I'm reading into this, I'll say they're probably closeted. And it's about this first time gay experience of the other man. I think it's really interesting here. The verses showcase the contrast between the two characters. The narrator is warm. At one point, even says the word mothering. And I think motherly is an interesting word here, but certainly nurturing in a way, and confident. Whereas the other man in the story is all of the exact opposite. In fact, they might even have some shame about the situation. Verse 1 says that he undressed me lying on his sheets, but he did not do the same. Even his boots stayed on. So there's, like I said, there's some shame to the entire incident for this other person. They're clumsy, they're shaking, and interestingly, I like this detail, tears streamed down his face. And I like how the encounter continues to proceed. This other person really wants to explore this side, it seems, but every aspect of their being is telling them not to, which I think speaks a lot to the programming that society has for men to be men and to be straight. And, especially, what is this? Uh, we were 23, so this is a 23-year-old person. Um, and just kind of having your entire worldview rocked by this moment and being so torn and having to fight this side of you that isn't you, but it's your upbringing, you know? Uh, I think it's intricately detailed and viscerally explained while also being, what's the word I want? Respectful of this other person. And I mention this specifically because in an interview says that this is a very personal but almost fictitious incident that happened to the lead singer, I think. One of the people in the band, though. Almost fiction, though, is the word. So this is an actual incident, and this Jason person might not be the real name, but was a real person. Um, but yeah, the whole thing is about our narrator nurturing this other person into exploring this side that obviously there's a strong part of their upbringing or society or social circles that has told them is wrong and is helping them explore this area despite how difficult it is for them. It's it's a nice story. But see, here's the thing that throws me off. The outro, where the song gets heavy and the vocals shift to single syllable per note, completely shifts the story as well. We go through this description of the evening and waking up next to each other, and he says, he just asked me to leave. That's how the fourth verse ends. And our intro then says, I stole 20 from his blue jeans. I'm pretty sure he saw me. And that's just as strong a contrast to the rest of the lyrics as it is a musical contrast. So, in a sense, there's a lot of thematic parallelism between the music and lyrics, but I still am not quite sure what the point of the outro is supposed to be. Musically, I could see this as a return to gravity, a return to the real world. Lyrically, though, I'm still not quite sure what's going on here, other than the fact that any of the levity and nurturing and exploration of this event is now in the past, and we are now looking at two complete strangers who have completely different goals in life, and any connection they might have made is rendered null and void at this point. I don't know. There is an annotation here. It says the line can be seen as the narrator taking a piece of Jason with him and Jason being too vulnerable to confront him. I like the read of the latter half of that, Jason being too vulnerable to stop him from having the 20 taken, but I don't see the taking of the $20 as leaving with a piece of Jason. I don't know. That's a weird read to me. and I can see it, right? But specifically, we're talking about currency. I mean, it could have been anything. I took his boxers, or I took a knick-knack. Well, see, those could kind of be seen as like souvenirs, though, which kind of makes it feel like a notch on the wall kind of idea, which would, I think, be the completely wrong take on this. But it's specifically a $20 bill, and maybe it just is how it is. This isn't just a made up story. This is something that was real, and this is just what happened afterwards. And maybe it was awkward. I think I unlocked this. So they had this evening. They wake up in the same bed, and the last line of verse 4 is, "He just asked me to leave." It is awkward. All of that connection and intimacy, and hey, the door's that way. And so the outro is awkward, and I don't think there's anything to be read into taking the 20 and being seen. It's literally just a recounting of events. That's what happened afterwards. It was kind of an awkward thing. Huh. Makes it feel very grounded. There isn't some larger than life, mind blowing thing to take away from this story. It's just another day in a human's life, you know? Things happened, and then this other kind of related but disconnected thing happened. It was kind of awkward, but I just got out of there with a 20. That kind of thing. Like, just, there's no way to end the story, so here's an ending. Um, yeah, I can get behind that. Those are my thoughts on Perfume Genius's Jason. Uh, Let me know yours. Down in the comments section, put your perspectives, opinions, if you have a different read on it. Let me know your thoughts about this track. Above that, in the description box, there's a link for Linktree. It'll take you to the menu, which, sneak peek, I guess you already saw earlier. It takes you here, though. You can find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. We do have one more track today. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC. We're going to be testing a new format tomorrow. I'm just going to put myself a 1 hour block, and we're going to explore as much music from my inbox as I can. Probably looking at 3 to 4 tracks, though. This is going to be stuff that we used to do for creator requests, though. All this is going to be smaller bands. I usually have less to say. The videos are more condensed, so we're just going to smash them together into one video, I suppose, and we'll see how that works. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.